Hello everyone. So in this last video on Empedocles, we'll talk about his other poem, Katharmoi or Purifications, which talk about his religious and moral injunctions. And unlike the first poem, which was addressed to his disciple Pausanias, here he's addressing it to the wider public. So I'll just read out the first line, which will tell you the tone of this poem, in the first fragment, where he says, "Friends who live in the great city of the yellow Akragas, up on the heights of the citadel, caring for good deeds, I give you greetings. An immortal God, mortal no more, I go about honored by all, as is fitting, crowned with ribbons and fresh garlands, and by all whom I come upon, as I enter their prospering towns, by men and women I am revered. They follow me in their thousands, asking where lies the road to profit, some desiring prophecies, while others ask to hear the word of healing for every kind of illness, long transfixed by harsh pains." So you can get the tone of the voice. An immortal God, revered by everyone, given garlands and crowns as is fitting, you know. So it's a different tone of voice now. Here he's not talking about talking to a disciple and telling him, oh, I can teach you how to stop the wind and I can teach you how to change the world, sort of a thing. Rather, here he's talking to these people who says, you know, you who revere me, listen to me, I'm an immortal God, kind of an idea. Right, now, like with the Pythagoreans, he actually had a very he had an idea of metempsychosis or reincarnation or the traveling of the soul from one body to another. And we'll see how, you know, this caused a lot of confusion in the history of philosophy, because how does he have that kind of a mechanistic universe on nature, peripusios, and then this kind of a very Pythagorean reincarnation belief, where what exactly is the soul then? You know, what exactly is this daimon that he talks about? So first, let's sort of discuss the title Katharmoi, Purifications. So these purifications, as I mentioned in the very first video, I think, was done by cleansing, by libation, sacrifices, when one had committed some wrong. Now, what wrong have we committed? So we have committed a lot of wrongs. First of all, the world of strife is separating us. But then also, I think one of the wrongs that we have committed is actually a kind of bloodshed and cannibalism that he mentions. You know, the idea is so this is actually very early on when we were talking about Homer. We talked about what it was to die in Homer. And remember when one dies in the Homeric when Achilles did not want to die, it was because he would become a shade. He would just become a ghost of a sort, with much lesser power than he would have had as an alive human. And the idea was there was something to do with blood drinking that would allow you to attain a kind of immortality of a sort, right? But what Empedocles would believe is that this is what has led us to fall from the title of immortals, right? We were immortals and we have fallen from that because of these horrible actions of ours. And so he says that, we should not eat, for example, like with the Pythagoreans, he argues for vegetarianism and he bans us from eating beans, which again, is not something that makes too much sense to me. So he basically does have all these injunctions. He says, "Wretches, utter wretches, keep your hands from beans," for some entertainment. I felt like I should read it out to you. So he had this sense of we have fallen from grace, and so we should follow some purifications, like with the Orphics. The Orphics did have these purification rites, these Bacchic rites, and these purifications would lead us to regain that immortality. So as he says, so you have, "Will you not cease from the din of slaughter? Do you not see that you are devouring each other in the heedlessness of your minds? Then another one where he says, the father lifts up his own son changed in form, and this is reincarnation, right? And slaughters him with a prayer, so that's why he's like against this sort of sacrificial sort of slaughter as well, that, you think you are slaying a lamb, but actually you might be slaying your own child. He says, a blind fool as he shrieks piteously, beseeching as he sacrifices, but he, deaf to his cries, slaughters him and makes ready in the halls an evil feast. In the same way, son sees his father and children their mother, and tearing out the life, they eat the flesh of those they love. So yeah, please be vegetarians according to Empedocles, yeah? I mean, if you believe Empedocles and the cycle of reincarnation, if you don't, then you can do whatever you want. Right, so yeah, alas, that pitiless day did not destroy me first before I contrived the wretched deed of eating flesh with my lips. Right, this idea that I ate flesh with my lips. And finally, this one, he says, for I have already been once a boy and a girl, a bush and a bird, and a leaping, journeying fish. Well, then maybe you should not eat sort of plants either if he has been a bush as well. So it's a bit tricky, but maybe it fit in the meter, so he included that. That's possible. So you have, so also this idea of this kind of a paradise lost, right? So there was this primal state where all things were tame and gentle to men, both beasts and birds, and their friendship burnt bright. And so you can see the sort of Christian idea of paradise, and definitely, I mean, because I was reading Milton recently, so the Miltonian idea of paradise where everybody is very kind and nobody is attacking anybody else. So among them there was no war god Ares worshipped, nor the battle cry, nor was Zeus their king, nor Kronos, nor Poseidon. Very interesting. So none of these gods were kings, but Cypris, Aphrodite was queen, right? Love was queen. So we have, as you see, just love as the main sort of goddess. She is the one who brings everything together. Here they propitiated with holy images, with paintings of living creatures, with perfumed of varied fragrance and sacrifices of pure myrrh, etc., etc. Their altar was not drenched by the unspeakable slaughter of bulls, but this was held among men the greatest defilement, to tear out the life from noble limbs and to eat them, right? So again, against animal slaughter. He's not really convinced by this idea of animal slaughter. So this gives you an idea of him believing in this cycle of reincarnation and this idea of purification, in which, like with Pythagoreans, there was this strict adherence to these rules of purity, and also by gaining this understanding of divine nature. Like with Pythagoreans, you had it via mathematics. Here you have this idea of sort of love, I suppose, that one can escape from this round of reincarnation, and we can gain the company of the gods, we can become immortal, we can leave this sort of separate animal bodies. And this love and strife then can be seen as the moral sort of effects of unification and division, of moral disintegration and unification. That strife, we had a divine unity, so that unity, that sphere of love is a divine state, it's a paradise that we lose. This paradise is lost by the act of disintegration in which we separate out, right? So we have an idea of a golden age of love, an era when love was the queen, as you saw, and you didn't have like Zeus or Kronos or Poseidon or any of these others, or Ares. Aphrodite is queen. And then because of this sin of bloodshed, right, because of slaughter of animals, we have been condemned to this cycle. And it really is a condemnation to the cycle of reincarnation. And in fact, he says, there's a misery of reincarnation, in which he says, I wept and I wailed when I saw the unfamiliar place where murder and anger and tribes of other deaths, they wander, that is my soul, it wanders in darkness over the meadow of doom because of this reincarnation. Or another one, alas, poor unhappy race of mortals, from what strifes and groanings were you born? Right, from what high rank and from what height of bliss have I fallen, I assume. Then he says, right, I'm clothed like my soul is clothed in an alien garment of flesh, right? So this whole idea of, there's an alien garment of flesh. I've been thrown into this world, this Heideggerian, like, thrownness into the world where I weep and I wail because I have lost my divine glory, right? Then another one, hope for release, and he says, but at the end, they come among men on earth as prophets, bards, doctors, and princes, and thence they arise as gods, highest in honor, sharing with the other immortals their hearth and their table, without part in human sorrows and weariness. So, this is the daimon that comes in, and he's probably one of them anyway. Yeah, so you have, I'll just continue because we need to finish. So you have this golden age of love, as you see, where Aphrodite ruled. Then you have the age of strife that comes in because of the sin of bloodshed, and we become condemned to the cycle of reincarnation. And it's because in killing animals, we have killed our own kin, as you saw, right? We have killed our own, as he says, sons and daughters and mothers and fathers, the souls that go round into mortal bodies, these daimones that go round, are in themselves, they're divine spirits. They're divine spirits, and their divinity is sort of to be returned. The hope is that the divinity can be returned, and they can be returned to the original and proper state, and this can happen by, a preponderance of love over strife. So there's a siege, let's say, by the world of strife, and in this we are these souls of these daimones, which are bound in these bodies and wandering about and in between doom and death, as he says, and we will do this forevermore if we don't undergo these katharmoi, if we don't undergo these purifications. And in that sense, we should learn fast from evil, he says, right? And lead this pure life, this life in which we don't eat flesh and don't eat beans, and then from this abstaining we will be purified. And then also, like with the Pythagoreans, we should also try to gain knowledge of the divine, knowledge that we hope to attain, and this knowledge of the divine is a knowledge of love, really, for Empedocles. Now, just to end this whole thing, what connection is there between the cosmology and this purifications? A lot of commentators from early on really think that there's no connection. There's one here and one there, and they're all contradictory and they don't hold together. Then some think that they come at different stages. Some would say that the purifications was an early stage, and then Periphusios, when he grew older and wiser, he sort of became, he started talking about natural philosophy. Others claim the opposite way, that the first stage is he's talking about nature in his youth, and then he gains some knowledge of the divine, and then as he grows older he goes madder, I suppose, and then he starts talking in these terms. But I like the sort of explanation given in Kirk and Raven, which is, they say it's a tentative explanation, where he says that the soul that we are talking about, the soul can itself be understood as the action of love, and the love can be understood in terms of this idea of attunement that we saw, right? That we saw the good attunement in Heraclitus, or the attunement we saw in the Pythagoreans, which is the harmony, and harmony as harmony of the spheres with Pythagoreans, or a harmony of the soul, really, with Heraclitus. So it is that sort of a notion of, because there's no harmony, we are not joined together, and it's not working well because of the lack of love and the lack of real sort of attraction, that we get broken up and separated out. So the world of strife sort of starts winning, and this original unity will come not through just love acting externally, but love acting internally from us as well. So that's, I suppose, the act of purification, is to have love act internally within us to get to a greater age of love rather than to an age of strife. So that is one explanation, which I think is as good an explanation as any for connecting these two poems. And there are others as well, and I'll share them with you in text form, because otherwise the video goes on for too long. And as I said, with Empedocles, Empedocles, we have so many fragments that, like it's difficult to speak less about him. I've tried to concentrate it as much as possible to speak as much as I did. So yeah, and the rest, let's see what we can discuss in our interactive sessions as well. So thanks a lot, and yeah, see you next time for Anaxagoras. Thank you.